is here at home. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, to finding where there isn't one. Magic trick. When holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips. But now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down. But I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Child's face, say it's not a testament, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament, I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down. But I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now.
Welcome. Thank you all so much for being here for this magical, wonderful, joyous occasion. We'll begin now with our prelude.
Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit, harvest the power, our separate fires will kindle one flame.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your love. Giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take us your neighbor, both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end.
All life needs is your faithfulness, is the lesson Rachel Naomi Remen uses to open her book, My Grandfather's Blessings. One day, Remen's grandfather, a Kabbalah scholar, brings her a small cup containing dirt. Raised in the heart of New York and only 4 years old, this gift he has brought is a mystery to her. He makes her promise to water it every day and shows her just how. His promise to her is that if she does this, that something might happen. The first week or so, she waters the dirt with enthusiasm. The next, she begins to do it begrudgingly. Then Remen finds herself remembering her task only after she has been tucked into bed. But at the end of several weeks, she can say that she never missed a single day. And one morning, something does happen. 2 little green leaves have begun to peek through the dirt. Remen is delighted and awed. Life is everywhere, hidden in the most ordinary and unlikely places, her grandfather says. All it needs is your faithfulness. We here have been blessed somehow by Elizabeth's ministry, a ministry of faithfulness, a ministry that reminds us to keep showing up, a ministry that calls us not only to be our best selves, but that calls us to be always our better selves and to learn what that better is. A ministry that reminds us to tend to our whole selves, our bodies, minds, hearts, and spirits, making sure our roots are nourished and that our leaves get to dance in the sunlight and the rain. So long as we are faithful most days, we might find that something is happening. New life appears where it was not before. We never know when or what form life will take. We just know that sometime in the most ordinary and unlikely places, it will appear. And we must be prepared to love it faithfully, simply because it is life and all life is sacred. Elizabeth reminds us to keep showing up, to act justly, to love fiercely and joyfully, to honor our roots that ground us in nourishing soil and our leaves that expand to seek for life, as it takes both to grow and flourish. In that spirit, let us worship together.
Thank you, Reverend Christina. As we gather in worship, it is my great honor, Elizabeth, gathered community of colleagues and friends, as a trustee of our Unitarian Universalist Association Board, to bring you greetings from our more than 1,000 member congregations in North America and around the world. On this day, each congregation celebrates you. We join together to formally recognize and invest you with spiritual authority. Today, we ritually affirm the call to ministry that you have felt for so long. Elizabeth, rejoice in this day. You know that in our living tradition, the right to ordain exclusively resides with our congregations. However, our congregations in association have established a process of discernment and vetting for the rigors of professional ministry, ministerial fellowship. Ministerial fellowship is a covenant with our Unitarian Universalist Association that binds our congregations and our fellowshipped ministers to a life of mutual support, service, justice, ethical behavior, and spiritual self-care. We were delighted to welcome you and your ministry into preliminary fellowship last year. Now, the ordination that you accept today requires you to minister more deeply to a community and a world desperately in need of beloved community. This hurting world that we have right now, this hurting world where Black and Brown and Indigenous people, where immigrant and imprisoned populations are dying because of government inaction around the globe, needs more of the ministry of activism and centering those we have pushed to the margins that you have engaged in for so very long. With your ordination, the congregation you serve, as well as all congregations and covenanting communities in association, we call you to account. We call you forth. We are choosing you to represent us, to comfort us, to prophesy to us. We are calling you to raise up truth as you know it. Dear one, you are ready, and we, your colleagues, will journey with you. And so on your ordination day, I bring you greetings from our UUA.
My name is Reverend Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf. I am calling you from sunny Columbus, Ohio, where it is fabulous weather. I bring the narwhal from Otherworld, which will be quite familiar to Elizabeth in a Columbus fashion. And I bring greetings from our Central East region. As congregational field staff, I have the great privilege of working with Pastor Elizabeth and with the congregation in Indiana. And I have to say, more than just greetings, we offer gratitude. In this time of trial and uncertainty, it was such a great pleasure to hear not from you or your congregation, but from our congregations near you about how much your service has mattered to them. You have given your prophetic witness not in some anticipatory way, but in the here and the now. And we thank you so much for that gift that you and your congregation have given and continue to give. In this time when people are uncertain, you have brought warmth, you have brought community, And you have said no to that white supremacist notion of we will go it alone, and said, no, we will figure it out together. And so from our region, from the hundreds of congregations in this region, and from the many who have benefited from your presence and your gifts already, we say thank you. And as a point of personal privilege, as an elder in the transgender, religious, professional, Unitarian Universalist together, I want to bear witness for a moment. It is no easy path to become an ordained minister, and it is an even harder path to do so as somebody who comes from historically marginalized locations. And so as a transgender person who has shared and watched you grow and live into that emotional labor and hear 100 times the cutting remarks of colleagues and parishioners, and still to say yes to this ministry, to the many more hoops that you had to jump through because of who you are, and because of the many, many gifts we live into because of who you are. I offer my gratitude to you, and I bear witness to that work, and I bear witness to the hardships that will come, but know that you are in community. For those who didn't make it this far, and for those who did, and for the many generations to come, you are a blessing. And so we offer our gratitude to you and to First Indiana and to all the people who have been blessed, are blessed, and will be blessed by your ministry in the years to come. We say, hey, you got this.
I'm Ruth Thomas, President of the Board of Trustees, Indiana, PA Unitarian Universalist Church. What a blessing to have you all here together with us to celebrate this grand milestone in Elizabeth's life. This is so momentous and so important to all of us. We're so happy to share it with you all. This day matters a lot. Let's get started.
Symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition.
Symbol of our commitment to working against injustice and hate. Symbol of our collective wisdom and shared purpose. In celebration today, for Elizabeth Ann Mount was born to tend this flame. When sickness is our health and murder is our wealth, they do the work of healing souls, of countering evil, of rising up in solidarity with the oppressed, of creating yet more beauty in our beautiful broken world. Now is the time when we recognize Elizabeth's ministry. Now is the moment when our collective flame that they tend with such compassion, care, and creativity shines out in joy and rising hope. In recognition of this minister and all they do and are, a shining reflection of our love and gratitude for them.
I was born to tend this flame. Ancestors danced and sang. What seeds now must I sow? Justice is our health, when murder is our wealth. What makes to heal a soul? Oh, my love, it's time to know. Oh, my darling. Oh, my darling. Oh, my love, it's time to know. The flag that makes me white takes brown and black lights. Where must my privilege go? Oh, my love, it's time to know. Oh, my darling. Oh, my darling. Oh, my love, it's time to know. I was born to link this chain, roll the clouds and make it rain. What anchor must I hold? Oh, my love, it's time to know. Oh, my darling. Oh, my darling. Oh, my love, it's time to know.
The redwood is one of the few conifers that sprout from the stump and roots, and it declares itself willing to begin immediately to repair the damage of the lumberjack and also that of the forest burner. John Muir. For Elizabeth, upon their ordination, there was a day in which we knew we had a certainty manufactured by routine. That is gone now, slid away like ticker tape, like the scrolling lights in an empty Times Square, which soundtrack is the full-throated howl of the lonesome wind whipping through the shuttered buildings. We find that we must imagine something that we have not even encountered yet. Our communities healing in new ways, whole, unencumbered by extractive capitalism, set free from prisons for profit, recipients of health care that is their human right, enjoying a relationship of mutuality with a planet recovering from her wounds. It is in this moment that Elizabeth rises to take up the mantle of a lifelong call, both to lead and to be led. A time in which they declare themselves willing to immediately begin to repair the damage. Like redwoods that in their sky-reaching silence have so much to teach us. But also knowing that being so deeply rooted may have a beginning, but never have an end. Yes, it is true that we are smaller, but also, woven together with life on this planet, we encounter the changes of the day, allowing the flame that sears to be the force that opens the seed. Next generation, embodied promise that the story is not over, and instead we will tell it again. Life renewing, gift abundant. Lead us, Elizabeth, in the futures that we have not yet built. Show us the practice of weathered faith that comes forth unexpected, because we have nurtured seed and root, leaf and stem, sprouting from the stump, irrepressible, rising from the roots, certain perhaps not of the direction of the sun, but knowing still the truth beneath, that all is not lost. Here we bring our tenacious hearts, sprouting, rising, reaching for the future in which roots inseparable we each and all belong. Beloved community imagined and intended, named and shaped until the aspiration becomes real. Today, we acknowledge that each of us, all of us, Elizabeth too, are reliant on being rooted, supposing that this source of strength is the source of our salvation. But we cannot ignore the leaves, the fruit, the bumpy bark. And we find on this day of acknowledging your heart, your ministry, your leadership, as our ancestor Joseph Tuckerman said, each of us is made for the whole of our species. We thank you, Elizabeth, for every yes that has led us to this moment. We are each, all of us, for the whole of your ministry. I love you, friend. Congratulations.
Thank you for that lovely reading, Reverend Teresa. Begin by saying, First UU Church of Indiana, thanks for having me. It's good to be home. I grew up in Harrisburg in our Unitarian church there. I went to culinary school in Punxsutawney, and so it is so good to be home, even if home is right now in California as I'm zooming in to your sanctuary. Elizabeth, when we spoke about this sermon, you said that, we had some things in common about what it means to be raised Unitarian Universalist and then feel a call to ministry. And I went digging, I went searching for precisely what that would mean. I of course, browsed through the Cambridge platform. I of course, flipped through Conrad Wright's Congregational Polity and learned about the different ways that we had conceived of ordination over time. What both of those systems have in common, the Unitarian and the Universalist systems have in common, is ordination is about coming from among the people, to receive the special investiture of spiritual leadership. You become a minister because the people need you to be. And you minister to the people because the people are your everlasting source of power. We hold one another in covenant in this dance that we do among the generations of power, shared ministry, and shared leadership. Now, of course, we both got our starts in ministry, both by our youth work, but also by doing young adult ministry work. It's where I first met you at a General Assembly. And so we know a lot about Sophia Lyon-Fahs. She received her ordination at the end of her ministry, or toward the end of her ministry. She lived another 20 years after she was retired. And she said of her ordination that she was going to accept it in order to put the children right in the center. That is something I've seen you do time and time again, not only the children, but the youth, the young adults, the people who most need to be centered because we have ignored them, because we have trod upon them, because we have made sure that the way that they can access even the tiniest sliver of power is fraught and jagged. when I got to thinking about how you might then continue to model your ministry, how you might continue to model the ordained ministry which you take up this afternoon, I then, of course, thought of Angus MacLean, who was the last president of the St. Lawrence Seminary, our Universalist seminary, who also understood just how deeply we needed to make sure that there was access to deeper knowledge about our shared faith. To be Unitarian Universalist is a deeply fraught path. We need to know more things about one another so that we can know more things about the truth. And I want you to be more. I want you to be more than Sophia. I want you to be more than Angus. I want you to reach deep into our past. I want you to be like Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, the Black woman who was also African Methodist Episcopal, who was a member of the First Unitarian Church in Philadelphia and went on a self-funded book tour more than once, not only to share her understanding of what it means to be Black and liberal in faith, but also to share what it is to be faithful in a society that sees you only as one thing and not as fully whole. I want you to be like the Reverend Joseph Jordan, who started the Universalist congregation of Suffolk, Virginia, who ran a school for the Black children and a church on Sundays, a church that was so popular that even the white folks showed up. I want you to run church that is so diverse, so multicultural, so inclusive that even the white folks might show up from time to time. I want you to be like the Reverend Marjorie Bowens Wheatley, who understood when she received fellowship as the first Black woman minister in Unitarian Universalism. She understood that that was an undying connection to the children and youth. To her last days, she never abandoned the children and youth. And I pray neither will you. I want you to be like the Reverend Joseph Santos Lyons. I want you to be like that Ray's UU who, when he saw that we did not have adequate ministry for young adults, got together with his friends and created the Continental UU Young Adult Network. I want you to continually work for creation, to help us know all of the things that we have not yet created. I want you to know that the ministry we make together is a balm. It is a balm across the generations that heals us all, that breaks us open anew, and makes it sure that we can have even more creative potential. I want you to be like Carrie Gottfried and Andres and Miguel Rivera Young. I want you to be like Emma Merchant. I want you to be like these youth and young adult leaders who have such a deep and profound understanding of what it means to be Unitarian Universalists, that your mentorship and work with them is magnetic. You cannot resist their pull, their call to ministry, their call for justice, their call to pay attention to what happens when we share our faith deeply, meaningfully, and for all time. I want you to model your ministry after the multi-faith ministry that Devlin will need. I want you to know that the deepest understanding we have of Unitarian Universalism is one that can hold all faiths, all peoples, the hurting, and the whole, those with wealth and those without, that can hold all of us in something we have not even begun to imagine. Dear Elizabeth, I want you to continue with the ministry you have already had. I want you to do it better. I want you to do it more deeply. I want you to do it accountably, reaching back to ancestors known and unknown, laying the groundwork for generations we will never know. And for you, First Unitarian Universalist Church of Indiana, I need you to be responsible for the Elizabeth you're sending out into the world. Ordination is a rite exclusive to our congregations. And we trust you. We trust you with this ordination. It is a deep and enduring covenant that we make in Unitarian Universalism. And we don't understand covenants that break down unless you are released or do so much harm that you are deemed to no longer be in covenant. I need you to take responsibility for Elizabeth's ministry. You're Elizabeth's people now. And Elizabeth, they are yours. We can only know the power and strength and integrity of Elizabeth's ministry because you have said that they are ready. You have said that they are set forth and apart for this unique form of spiritual leadership. We know in our living and lively tradition that the work of ministry is always shared. And that makes ordination an approach to ministry. From now on, forever and always, unless something changes, you are each other's people. We will know your congregation by Elizabeth's works, and your congregation will be known by Elizabeth's works. You are journeying together. You are setting a pathway for the generations you will never know and cannot even know, even in your wildest dreams. And Elizabeth, we, your colleagues, are also here to witness the ordination that only your congregation can give to you. So I ask you on this day, Elizabeth, are you ready? I think my sermon's over then. Amen, and blessed be.
I first met Elizabeth at Meadville Lombard Theological School when we were both still in seminary. And the moment that I recall the most is probably the first time that we really went deep with each other, Elizabeth. And that was in Tulsa, in Mark Hicks' class. That's an important class because it's a class where we use the Tulsa congregation itself as a textbook, as a space of learning about anti-racism and how to do it effectively. But the other important thing that we learn in that class is that the most important textbook is ourselves, and that we need to understand ourselves. And it was in that context and us understanding ourselves and each other more deeply that Elizabeth and I connected and continued this connection and this commitment to anti-racism and to justice and to love. And so it is entirely appropriate that today's offering will be split between the Living Tradition Fund and the Loretta Credentialing Scholarship Fund. The Living Tradition Fund offers emergency grants for religious professionals, but it also, importantly, offers scholarships for theological students, and it offers debt relief for newly graduated students. And of course, the Laredo Credentialing Scholarship Fund does the same for religious educators who are needing support in their credentialing process. Elizabeth and I, and we hope you too, are committed to a learned religious education and a learned ministry and a learned approach to things. And it's so important to support our colleagues coming up. And it's also important to recognize that those of us who need more support are those of us who are living with marginalized identities. So in and of itself, these funds support the becoming of the Unitarian Universalism that we all long for, and the strengthening of our commitment to justice and to love and to equity. And so I'm going to ask you to give generously today on behalf of Elizabeth's wonderful ordination, which I am so pleased about, but more importantly, on behalf of their commitment to justice and to learning and to making things available to others. So I'm going to channel my inner Denny Davidoff. I love you, Denny, miss you. I'm going to channel Denny and I'm going to say, think of something that you can afford, and now double it. Please give generously today. In a second, there will be a slide with the PayPal link. It is office@firstuu-indianapa.org, and that will be projected in just a second. Thank you very much for your generous offerings, which will be gratefully received.
In the living tradition of Unitarian Universalism, the authority to confer ordination lies wholly with individual congregations. It is an especially profound and joyous occasion for a congregation to recognize one who has answered the call to ministry as their life's work. The act of ordination bestows the authority of religious leadership, the title of reverend, and the privilege to wear a stole. This act of ordination will forever bind together Elizabeth Ann Mount and the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Indiana, PA, weaving stronger the interdependence of our shared existence. This act of ordination confers the authority of religious leadership and celebrates the relationship between Elizabeth and this congregation, which affirms and is in the process of helping to grow their ministry. Elizabeth,
We have recognized your calling to the Unitarian Universalist ministry, discerned in the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Asheville and nurtured in the First Unitarian Society and First Universalist Church of Denver, Colorado. You have received the recommendation of the Ministerial Fellowship Committee of our association and have entered into preliminary fellowship. Now, in this sacred moment, and by the authority of our congregation, it is our privilege to ordain you. Elizabeth, are you ready to accept the responsibilities, the joys, the privileges, and the burdens of ordained ministry in this Unitarian Universalist tradition?
Oh, goodness, yes, I so very much am. Yes.
The congregation.
Will the members of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Indiana, PA, please get ready to affirm this ordination? With this rite, we acknowledge our
With this rite, we acknowledge our own calling to be engaged and active partners in our covenantal tradition, to be in relationship with others, to be in community in times of ease and in times of difficulty. We affirm our own commitment to the shared ministry of our Unitarian Universalist faith, our community, and our world. Members, please unmute yourselves now to answer this question. Are we prepared now to renew these responsibilities and confer ordination upon Elizabeth?
Yes.
We are.
We are. With joy.
Absolutely.
Confirm your call, ordain you, Reverend Elizabeth Ann Mount, to the Unitarian Universalist Ministry.
Thumbs up.
I think that's official.
May you always minister from your whole self, bringing your heart and mind, body and spirit to the work.
May you always speak the truth with compassion and fire.
May you demonstrate humility, curiosity, and courage.
May you minister with love, justice, and compassion foremost.
May you listen and understand what vulnerable truth people may share and find beauty in the broken places.
May you know yourself to be one piece of the creation of a faith greater and more full of love than you can imagine.
May you be a witness to the living tradition of our faith, and may you be faithful in service of healing the world.
I'm gonna make it through this. So with deep gratitude and great joy, mindful of its privileges and responsibilities, I accept the Unitarian Universalist ministry to which you are ordaining me. I pledge to be a minister who cares for hearts and souls in all stages of life, with tenderness, care, and compassion, who guides and inspires people to become their best expression of the diverse and fantastic ways that human beings thrive, and to bring forth greater justice wherever I go, and to always be guided by a powerful love that exceeds all expectations.
Thank you. Will all others assembled here please add your love and encouragement to this ordination in the chat stream?
But I've learned how to from you.
Sure.
Congratulations. Not long.
Elizabeth, we affirm you and send you forth a minister in our tradition, knowing that we commission you to bring insight, care, inspiration, and a call to action to all whose lives you touch in your call to nurture our spirits and help heal the world. Elizabeth, as you go forth, know that our support goes with you wherever you may go. Will those gathered here please join a final response of celebration?
We celebrate you now as a Unitarian Universalist minister. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
Have enough conversation.
Reverend!
Can we get her back on the screen?
Reverend Elizabeth Ann Mount, this is for you. I am waking up to find my world between the dying and being reborn. I see what is and I see what could be, can close my eyes again and go back to sleep. So fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide, of the tide. Fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. How can I change our course? Just a lonely voice. Wish I could lose myself in all the noise. But if we all would rise, a generation proud with a mighty song, we could turn this world around. We could turn this world around. So fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Hey, fill my days with blessed unrest, and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Oh, hey, hey. Ancestors all behind, and before me every child. Ancestors all behind, and before me every child. Ancestors all behind, and before me every child. I bring the power of a long unbroken line. So when our time is through, I wanna know, did what we came to do for the future ones. So in our darkest days, may we all be strong, live our lives so life may go on. Fill my days with blessed unrest, and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide, of the tide. My days with blessed unrest, and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide, of the tide. My days with blessed unrest, and my nights with dreams of justice. For the turning of the tide, for the tide. For my days with blessed unrest, and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide.
Today, we, Elizabeth parents, are presenting Elizabeth with a Stole, a work of art designed and created by Crystal Reiser of First Universalist Church in Denver, where Elizabeth interned for 2 years. We thank Crystal for her work. May this stole always serve as a reminder of the good things in life, of hope, of love, of determination, and of fulfillment.
The overall design indicates Elizabeth's Colorado roots with a flowing stream from the mountain heights to the plains and the varied environmental zones the stream encounters, along with the 4 elements of earth, air, water, and fire. Included are columbine flowers specifically because they are a feature of the Mounts Marysville mountain property, as well as our state flower. The 3 flowers represent life and the human elements of body, mind, and spirit.
The stars on the right side contain the Little Dipper, and the slightly larger crystal is Polaris, the North Star, to help guide you in your spiritual journey.
The 7 clear stars of the Little Dipper represent the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism.
The stars on the left side contain the constellation Virgo, Elizabeth's birth sign. The 6 stars depicting Virgo represent UU's 6 sources.
There are a total of 21 stars. In Taoism, this number represents completion and reawakening.
The nape of the neck is a special design. The base has a look of broken links, representing the freedom to break away from what holds us back.
There are linked arms, for we need others to join us along the journey.
And finally, the chalice flame, lighting our way and reminding us of our brightness within and the need to push ourselves forward to doing what is right, not what is easy.
May this stole continue to gain in meaning for you, Elizabeth, as you wear it through your many years of ministry.
We present this stole to you, Elizabeth, with our love and everlasting support.
In a moment, Reverend Caitlin Coilberg, on behalf of your parents, will place upon your shoulders a stole, a representation of the yoke of ministry. Though it is made only of fabric and thread, we know that its weight is great. Know that we gathered here today believe that you are fully capable of carrying this weight with humility and grace, and that you will be careful that this weight does not overburden your ministry, personhood, or relationships. I will now pass this stole to you by the power of the internet.
And now, there they are. Yesterday, you dedicated our child to Unitarian Universalism.
You're muted.
We have blessed you, and now you wear the yoke of ministry. Would you care to fist bump my child?
I'm gonna hug you for all the other people who can't.
Fabulous.
It is my distinct honor to be able to give the charge to ministry to Reverend Elizabeth Ann Mount, but it's also a humbling experience. And so I'm going to need to draw on a higher power, a larger force than I can muster just for myself. And I don't think that there is any force on earth, no force that I know, more powerful than fierce love, rooted in justice, and conveyed with a perfect mixture of compassion and resistance. And one of the reasons that I'm really glad that I'm friends with Elizabeth Mount is that I get to see that force honed and used with great skill. Another reason that I'm really good friends, that I like being really good friends with Elizabeth Mount, is that I get to brag about being friends with Elizabeth Mount. Every time they do something courageous or cool, I get to be like a roadie for a rock band going, yeah, I know them. They're my friend. Like in 2015, Elizabeth, along with other climate activists, hung from the St. John's Bridge in Portland for over 40 hours so that they could stop a Shell oil ship, which was trying to leave port and go exploratory drilling in the Arctic. Am I allowed to say badass at an ordination? Because, my friend, you are. And people, they notice this quality about Elizabeth. My friend Carolyn, this amazing priestess I went to seminary with, she read an article about this demonstration and she called me and said, don't you know this Elizabeth person? And I was like, yeah, I do. They're my friend. And then they responded with, aren't they the one that you did that young adult committee work with? Weren't you always telling me that you were so glad that they were so clear-headed about systems and deeply understood humans? To which I said, yeah, that's Elizabeth. And my friend Carolyn said, I can't picture it. I said, what do you mean? And she said, You know, when you picture someone who is clear-headed about systems and deeply understanding of human beings, you picture someone who is patient and kind and thoughtful, reserved. Not a person who is willing to commit these daring acts of moral and physical courage. I can't picture both in the same person. I later asked Carolyn and Elizabeth to co-marshal my ordination. I needed to because my friends are rowdy, clearly. And Carolyn was really excited. She kept saying, I get to meet the bridge dangler. And they did meet. They both stayed at my house. They did a fabulous job marshaling. They got to know one another a little bit. And afterwards, Carolyn came up to me and she said, they're both. I had to ask her to remind me of what she meant. And Carolyn said, they're both. They're kind and they're patient and they're full of compassion and absolutely ready to boldly take on the next moral outrage, body and soul. They're both. And I'm really glad I met them because now I can picture it. Elizabeth, you have this rare capacity to simultaneously harness compassion and resistance. Michelle Alexander talks about the price that we pay for being awake to injustice in the world. And it's true, pop culture basically ruined. Friendships can become pretty strained. Purchasing anything becomes fraught with all these ethical conundrums. We see that the things that are normal and usual in our society are things that hold up systems of injustice. And many of us get tired and we feel small and we become defeated. And many of us get consumed with anger and we try to bludgeon justice into the world with the force of 1,000 sunny yellow t-shirts. It's hard to know how to greet the world, seeking justice and connection. But Elizabeth, because I know you, I can picture it. I can picture a resistance that is clear in its opposition to harm, but willing to welcome the harm doer into good faith circles of restoration and accountability. I can picture a resistance that is protective, but not exclusionary. Resistance that draws its power from collective process, not individual indignation. And I know, believe me, I know that you have felt small and sad and angry at times in your encounters with the world. But it seems like when you do, you lay yourself to rest with prayers of connection and interdependence. And you stir again, ready to fight, ready to love, and ready to teach others how to remain soft, yet constant in this complicated, imperfect, yet splendid world. That is the service that your calling gives to our faith. Reverend Elizabeth Mount, friend, colleague, perpetual badass, I charge you to do in ministry everything that you always have done. I charge you to lead a movement of compassionate resistance. I'm going to give some very specific charges now, and I want you all to help me. This would be a responsive reading if we were able to unmute, but it's powerful even not. So when I say something, I want you to say, lead us in compassionate resistance. All right, y'all with me? All right. When we are lost and the road to collective liberation seems murky and unkempt, lead us in compassionate resistance. When the might of the powers and principalities loom large and choosing fear seems safer than choosing love, lead us
in compassionate resistance.
When we become unrooted from the center of our integrity and we need a little helpful corrective, lead us
in compassionate resistance.
And should we succeed and become foolish enough to believe that our power is our own, reintroduce us to the God of our understanding and lead us
to compassionate resistance.
And this last one, I'm taking straight from Reverend Kimberly Davis because I cannot improve the words. When the loneliness of your call seems like too much of a sacrifice, but sometimes it will. This job is hard. When the loneliness of your call seems like too much of a sacrifice, show yourself some compassion. Resist your tendency to do it alone, because when you need support, I'll be there. And so will Greg, and so will T, and so will Christina, and so will Julika, and everyone else that showed up here to witness you today. Because we know, we all know that we need you. We need you to lead us in compassionate resistance.
Yes, compassionate resistance.
This is my charge to you this day and every day going forward. Good luck, my friend. May God bless you on the journey.
Hello, I'm Penny Vick, the Director of Religious Exploration here at First Unitarian Universalist Church of Indiana. I'm joined with Jonas Vick, one of our RE representatives, and he today is going to present to you the children's charge we have for Pastor Elizabeth as they are getting ordained. Pastor Elizabeth, you are being ordained as minister of this church, voted by the adult members, but we, the children and youth, are also members of this congregation, and we have a few demands. No, I mean reminders for you in your ministry. 1, to help us make opportunities for us to learn from guests of other faiths, as well as you and other Unitarian Universalists that have different experiences than us. 2, to keep social times that connect us to one another and the adults at First UU, like our fall festival, chili cook-off, and holiday dinner, and other First UU ritual services, water and gathering, flower communion, and bread communion. 3, to be our leader in town for us as you use at local marches, protests, and other events. 4, to celebrate big stuff in our lives like graduating Al, completing coming of age, and dedicating babies in our church. Oh, also, to be on our side when it comes to getting and exploring the woods at the back of the church, no matter what the other adults say. Oh, and never let them take the cookies and donuts away from social hour. So, as you do ministry, remember how you were once a child at Unitarian Universalism, and remember that we are not only the future of this congregation, but we are here right now, and we want you to be our minister too. Thank you.
Elizabeth, it is an honor to be here today, participating in this beautiful ritual of ordination and to offer you this blessing of fellowship. This ritual, usually called the right hand of fellowship, can be traced back to Paul in the Galatians and has been repeated countless times upon the welcoming of a person into the church or to the ministry by presenting the right hand to shake and hold. This ritual is about the power of mentoring and support over the years, the power of naming our spiritual ancestors. And yet, today, we are not close enough for me to offer you my hand in blessing and welcome. And so today, I offer you the blessing of fellowship as I officially welcome you into this circle of ordained colleagues. And I say that intentionally, not the hierarchical ranks of fellowship, but the circle of colleagues. What a pleasure it has been to witness your journey to this day, to watch and support you as you gathered and built your tools and your toolbox for ministry. And I must say, today we are a long way from the kitchen at 1 Edwin Place in Asheville. Do you remember, Elizabeth, that day now years ago when I was cleaning out the expired boxes of tea from the hospitality cabinet? We were chatting about something unrelated as I lifted a box of tea out of the basket, looked at it, and burst out laughing. You looked at the box, wondering what was up, and started laughing too. That's not very hospitable, I said. You see, friends, I had discovered that someone had donated a box of Senna herbal tea to the coffee hour supplies. If you're not familiar with it, Senna is an herbal laxative. Welcome to church, y'all. Would you like some tea? So we continued to giggle together, but as we returned to the conversation in progress, Elizabeth, you took the box from me and said, and put it in your bag and said, I can donate this to the street medics. They'll use it. You knew what it was for, this random discarded thing in the church kitchen, and you knew who might use it. But more important than that, you had the connections to get it there, to get it to a place where it could be useful. A box of tea, perhaps, is a silly thing to bring up on such a momentous day, but that story reminds me so much of the fundamentals of who you are as a minister. My friend, you have a gift for connecting people, for finding the tools to accomplish a given task, even on a tight budget, even without appropriate materials. You are an upcycler, a creator, a problem solver. Yours is an activist ministry, a pastoral ministry, a queer ministry, an anarchist ministry, one that refuses to be contained by the hidebound expectations of the status quo. That is not an easy road, as you well know, but again and again and again, you travel this road with courage and grace. I want to remind you today, as I offer you my virtual hand of fellowship, that one of the most essential tools in your toolbox, your most important connection to make and keep, is us, your colleagues. Your colleagues will save you again and again and again and again. Sometimes they will save you with challenges that call you to reflect and regroup, but more often they will save you with kindness and help, laughter and snark, and maybe some other kind of tea. It's so easy to forget sometimes about the web of colleagues that is here to catch you when you fear or falter and celebrate with you when you triumph. Elizabeth, do not ever forget that we are here for you. We are here with you. I want to invite the ordained colleagues here with us today to spread your arms wide. Spread them wide and let us create a circle of colleagues across the miles. Open your arms and your hearts. Breathe deeply with me. Let us create this virtual circle of love and support to Elizabeth. Enfold them now in this circle of colleagues. And when we are next together, offer them your right hand or a hug if they consent to seal this promise we make today. Welcome, my friend, to the circle of colleagues.
And now I have to follow that. I'm going to tell this story, and some of you have heard it. Many years ago, I was at an AFL-CIO conference, and there were two keynote speakers at this event. Maxine Waters, and Ann Richards. And Maxine came out, Congresswoman Maxine Waters. She had just recently been elected to Congress, and she came out and she tore the place down. And then little Ann Richards came out, all 5 foot nothing of her, that big high Texas hair. And I remember she got out there and she said, well, hell, nobody told me I was going to have to follow Maxine Waters. So now I have to follow Lisa, who followed the young adult, like, that's a lot. So, good afternoon. I am the last speaker of the day, and I'm sure there are going to be some of you who are just full up of words right now. And I get it. And the thing I want to talk to you today about is lots of people have been talking about Elizabeth, about Reverend Mount. Now I get to say that a lot. And I want to talk to the congregation. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Reverend Dawn Fortune. I serve as the first ever called minister at the UU Congregation of the South Jersey Shore in Galloway, New Jersey. In my life before ministry, I was a contractor, a bus driver, newspaper reporter, union sheet metal worker. I have been a political organizer, rabble-rouser, teamster, and occasionally a troublemaker. And it is in that role that I want to speak with you today. I also want to say that Reverend Mount has no idea what I am about to say. I have shared none of my words with them because this is between me and the congregation, not me and them. So this congregation, as you've heard multiple times, has performed one of the most powerful things that it can do in our denomination. You have just ordained a minister. No other body but a congregation can do that. Now, the care and feeding of a Unitarian Universalist minister is serious business. A congregation must take care to make sure your minister gets enough sunshine and fresh air, enough time to rest, enough healthy foods and snacks, plenty of hydration, and some exercise. And while you have ordained Reverend Mount and have a feeling of ownership in this special relationship, I want to remind you that you do not own Reverend Mount. You have given your solemn vote to endorse this person in ministry, but you have not purchased the minister or that ministry. Please remember that. Congregations sometimes forget. Now, there are some things a congregation ought to do with its minister. And first is you should trust your minister. Unitarian Universalist ministers go through some of the most rigorous professional training of any ministers in the Western world. We are trained in theology and pastoral care, organizational systems, sexual health and ethics, and engaging in prophetic witness. Trust that Reverend Mount knows what they're doing. Please, of all the things that will burn out a minister, having to convince a congregation that we know what we're doing is near the top of that list. I want you to speak to your minister honestly. Reverend Mount is really, really good at what they do, but they cannot read your mind and know what is bothering you. They cannot know the deep history of this community and the relationships that go back years or even generations. If you want Elizabeth to know something, tell them. Don't imagine that they'll figure it out. You should compensate your minister fairly. Now, I know that you are using a 3/4 time model with Reverend Mount, and I applaud your commitment to fair and equitable treatment of your staff. As you move and change in the future, I encourage you to remember that commitment. It can be easy to take for granted the presence of your minister. And I encourage you to work toward full-time ministry for a couple of reasons. First, because you deserve a full-time minister. This little congregation in the hills is a beacon for liberal religion and social justice. You deserve the benefits and support of a full-time minister as you carry out your mission to heal and change both your community and the world. And second, I encourage you to work toward full-time ministry because Reverend Mount deserves full-time employment. Part-time ministry can be frustrating. In my position where I am now, I started at 3/4 time using the same model that you're using. And I will tell you that about the time I got up to speed on something, I had to stop and take a week off. It was frustrating for me. It was frustrating for the congregation. There's just so much we can do if we don't have to stop every 3 weeks and sit home and twiddle our thumbs. For the sake of the ministry you share, give yourself and your minister the gift of full-time ministry. And now I want to speak to you as a former union activist. The model of ministry Unitarian Universalism now uses is a holdover from a time when we were unaware of the hazards of burnout and the benefit of good boundaries. A 6-day work week is just not equitable. It is not healthy. It is not sustainable. It is not just. When I was 20 years old, I worked in an automotive factory. I had a 40-hour work week, 2 consecutive days off each week. I got paid extra for working longer shifts or on holidays or weekends. Now, ministry is not factory work, so there's a lot that doesn't translate well. Nights and weekends are pretty much what we do. 40-hour weeks are a fantasy, and I know that. But what I do know is that you can provide your minister with 2 days off each week in a row. I will tell you that for those of us who have Mondays off and Tuesdays, Mondays, all I can do is flop around on the couch and wish I had energy to run errands. And I think the ministers, I see nodding heads, ministers out there know what I'm talking about. If I deserved 2 days off in a row making widgets in a factory, then certainly a minister with the education that Elizabeth has and the willingness to show up at your bedside if you need it, in the emergency room when you need it, with a prayer and to hold your hand in your most tender moments, certainly Reverend Mount deserves a 2-day weekend. In that same vein, I also want to challenge you to make sure that Reverend Mount takes their allotted time off. In my experience of Reverend Mount, I have found them to be smart, determined, passionate, committed, and with not a small hint of an overdeveloped sense of responsibility. They will not, I dare say they could not loaf on this job. That's not how they're wired. They're not wired to short you in any way, shape, or form. But if you want your minister to be healthy, make sure they take their time off, okay? And one final thing I want to say is about boundaries. Ministers are wired to serve. It's what we do. Establishing and maintaining boundaries can be a real challenge, particularly for people who are passionate and devoted to our work, and for when that work involves us showing up with a full heart. And boundaries are lifesavers. They keep us from getting our roles and relationships mixed up in harmful ways. And this might be hard for some of you to hear, but Reverend Mount is your minister, but they are not your friend. They cannot be your friend. They can be friendly, but not your friend. Friendship requires a level of mutual vulnerability that undermines the professional ministerial relationship with a congregation. In the same way you can't be friends with your therapist, you can't be friends with your minister. If you invite Reverend Mount to your home for coffee, dinner, cookout, party, understand that they'll be working the whole time they're there. And it might be enjoyable work, it might be wonderful work, it's still work. That's not a social visit for them, even if it feels that way for you. This is the nature of what we do. Now, as a minister, Reverend Mount serves first the divine as they know it, second, Unitarian Universalist movement, and third, the mission and people of this congregation, in that order. Okay? God, however you understand it, Unitarian Universalism, our movement in this world, and third, the mission first and the people of this congregation. I encourage you as a congregation to remember that list of priorities and to stay right-sized. Today you have ordained a minister, and that is a powerful, powerful, holy thing. You will be forever joined by this, dare I say, sacrament. I want to congratulate you and thank you for this day and this event. You are carrying on a tradition that dates back to the 1600s on this continent, the independent power of the congregation to ordain a minister. I offer blessings upon you, upon your mission, and upon your shared ministry. May you all thrive and be well.
Amen. And so, as we go forth from this place, newly bound together in the relationship of ordained clergy and congregation, of colleagues, of friends and blessings. As we go forth, may we carry with us the joy of this day. May this threshold be just one of many steps, of many days in which we move along a path together, leading to a blessed community that is beyond our wildest imaginings of this day. May this be not an ending point, but a beginning of a future in which justice is more expansive, compassion deeper, and the acceptance and celebration of one another in all our glorious diversity. May it be more than any dream, and may it become a reality in which we all can be held and hold on to one another. For this is how we build a Unitarian Universalism that holds, that is, that moves in this world to be a salvation for us all. So we extinguish our chalice flame, but never the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us in our hearts and with our spirits. Blessed be. Thank you all so much for being with me on this wonderful, special, blessed day. If you would like to stay, it's a bring your own everything reception, whatever snacks or tea or so on you would like. And I will pop you out into some breakout rooms. You can get to know people who have known me on various points in my journey, and I will move through kind of reception line like in the various rooms.
Can I bring you some pie?
Fabulous.
How about this?
Thank you all so, so much. Sorry?
How much pie do you want? This much?
Yeah.
There you go.